Who is the positive film buff? Why does he love every single movie that he sees? Why does he listen to positive reviews from other viewers around the world? Why is he unable to notice a single flaw with a movie when other film buffs in the world do? There may or may not be a definitive answer to those questions, but there may be a reason as to why there's a positive film buff out in the world. From the very beginning, the positive film buff has noticed a lot of eye-catching stories occurring inside a small screen, particularly the stories that were created by a significant source of magic that all began by a mouse. From childhood, the positive film buff discovered a lot of interesting stories from that source. He then discovered stories from other sources, stories that appeared to be bigger, thrilling, and more marvelous. But in that time, the positive film buff mainly stuck to one source of storytelling, stories that were made for families, meant to make you laugh, and meant to make you listen to some glorious music. The positive film buff grew from child to teen to adult, and in that long time, he discovered a lot of different sides of storytelling. Having already got several tastes of those sides in his childhood, he fully unlocked the door and experienced stories involving fantasy, science fiction, superhero, action, comedy, drama, horror, thriller, and even classic epics. To this day, he still continues to crave and experience all the things he had experienced all of his life, and allowed new experiences to occur. The positive film buff also began to notice that all of the stories he experienced were loved by others around the world, and many of them achieved a lot of big legacies in this world. While not every story in the world gained that same amount of love and legacy, the positive film buff found himself paying more attention to the stories that did gain that love and legacy, and as for the ones that didn't, it appeared that he was the only one who could see the good in those kind of stories. In his mind, every single story made in this world was made for only one goal: to entertain people and make people happy. And regardless if anyone didn't like several stories, if those stories are interesting, contain strong acting, great music, magnificent images, and even achieve some big accomplishments, it remained good stories to him. All his life, the positive film buff was that exact person who was entertained. And the moment he became an adult, he made sure that others knew how much he was entertained by all those millions of stories. Every year, the positive film buff keeps on adding a lot of stories to his pile that appears to be never-ending. A lot of stories were made for a really big screen, but were also made for a stage and a small screen. Every story he experiences, they're either made for the old, the young at heart, or just the young. Now, when people grow up, they may have no desire to experience stories made for the young again, or they may have no desire to experience some stories made for the old. The same could be said for the positive film buff, even though sometimes experiences for the old win him over at the end. And experiences for the young were so brilliant, they'll never leave his head even as he grows. And as we reach the end of this story, the positive film buff continues his lifelong goal: to experience thousands of stories that were made to delight, entertain, and impress the world, all showcased on an extremely large screen, and acknowledge to the world how truly amazing these stories are.